All right, let's look at quarantine sites. The DA has called on Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille to provide clarity on what it calls chaos at quarantine sites. De Lille herself has called for a probe after returnees to the country from abroad were sent to unprepared quarantine sites. Another group was left stranded for hours on the airport tarmac because there was no accommodation available. Well, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Patricia de Lille, joining us now on the line. Minister, thank you very much. Can we start with these 180 South Africans that were sent to very dodgy quarantine facilities on Sunday? The reports are that there was no food, water or electricity. You're now talking about a scam.
Yes, I have asked the Director General of the Department to launch an investigation in consultation with the national joints. Because we, as the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, procured 2 hotels to accommodate 244 passengers arriving from the United States and from other countries. After we have signed the service level agreement with the hotels were then awaiting the arrival of the passengers, but only 35 arrived. And we had to look for the other 180 the next morning, and we found that 180 was just diverted to sites that was not procured by Department of Public Works, and no service level agreement has been signed. And that's why we've now launched an investigation as to who took the decision to divert passengers from those flights to other facilities.
They were taken apparently to Transnet, Telkom and Eskom sites. I mean, ironically, the Eskom site had no lights. Are these SOEs also involved? It's very confusing, Minister.
It is, in a sense that, if we had stick to the arrangements and the procurement plan of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, this would have not happened. Or if, anybody alerted us before the time that 180 passengers will go to other sites, it could have been avoided. But the way it works, Francis, is that in terms of the regulations, we as Public Works are required to identify sites and make them available. We have identified over 1,400 sites. And then the procedure is that the Department of Health must inspect and assess those facilities and then confirm whether they can be used for that purpose. And so far, the Health Department has confirmed 352 facilities that are compliant, representing about 25,000 beds. And we work from that master list. And so far, we've used about 116 of those approved facilities. They've been activated, and it represents about 11,000 beds. So we have identified sites across the 44 districts in our countries and all the metropolitans, and the Health Department must then approve them. So it's not that there's a shortage of quarantine sites. It's just that we are now working on a protocol between 5 departments so that we can clearly identify the role and responsibilities of each department so that we don't have this confusion going into the future. So we're expecting about 1,000 people that will come back over the weekend, and I can assure you that we are prepared to receive all of them.
So Minister, firstly though, who took these people to the wrong quarantine sites? Who is responsible for what you're calling a scam? There's even been claims that they maybe did it for money. They were taking the money meant for the hotels, taking these people to dodgy sites and pocketing the difference.
Francis, that's why I've launched a full investigation. And by Monday or Tuesday, I will get a report, because we still don't know who took that decision to divert 180 passengers to other sites other than the procured sites.
All right, another group was left for hours on the tarmac because there was no accommodation. There's been some blame towards your department because you need 72 hours. What's happening with those delays?
In terms of the net joins protocol agreement that we have, we need 72 hours to activate a site where any of the passengers can go. And the reason for that, Francis, is that the hotels themselves, they need 48 hours to activate an hotel. They must bring their staff back. They must screen their staff. The Department of Health must put up medical facilities. So when the passengers arrive, they are screened at the hotel. And we had to do it in a record time because we were only informed on the day when the passengers arrived. So passengers were delayed for about 2 to 3 hours at OR Tambo. But again, thereafter, at 8 o'clock that night, Monday night, we were able to transport the passengers to 3 hotels, some surrounding OR Tambo and some in Pretoria. You know, this is a first for government, and, you know, as we go along, we are developing the protocols and agreements, how it should be done. But that was totally, difficult for us to comply and get people when they arrive immediately to their hotel.
Yeah. Are you reducing that 72 hours and being flexible? I ask because I know a foreign national whose flight has been cancelled. It was meant to be this weekend. Apparently the flights coming in have all been delayed. That airline was ready. The people were ready. Tickets had been paid for. So it sounds like there's still backlogs in the system.
Yes, most definitely, Francis. We want to be flexible as long as we know before the time, when the flights will arrive and an estimate of the numbers of people that we are expecting. When it comes to the departure of the flights from any foreign country, that has got to do with the airports company, with Department of International Relations. And so we are not involved in that part, but we have now seen in the past few days that there can be delays for one or the other reason for which we've got no control over. And so we have now been proactive in making sure that we sign service level agreement based on the first information that we receive, so that when people land at OR Tambo, that they are ready to be transported to their hotels by the Department of Transport. The security cluster must also be activated because they provide security at the site. The Department of Health is responsible for the operations, to take down the details. The Department of Home Affairs is involved. So I think that we are now getting to a stage where we're able to streamline the process, and that all of us can be more proactive to avoid any delays for any passenger.
All right, well, we'll monitor those South Africans returning at the weekend. Minister, before we let you go, another issue is the Beitbridge border post, the project there to repair and replace some fencing, and you're worried about the quality of that work. What's happening there? And you said the Auditor General is investigating that. Do you think your department will come out okay?
The department, the border fence was a measure that Public Works had to implement after the President announced the state of disaster on the 15th of March. And we were asked to make sure that we secure part of the borders of South Africa and contain the spread of the virus. So we work very hard to do everything that we can to make sure that the specifications that we received from the Department of Defense to repair and replace the existing fence, which was in place but was in a very bad state for about 40 kilometers, what they call the hotspots. So the contractors was appointed on the 18th of March and completed the work around about the 20th of April. To date, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure has paid 21.8 million, and the final account is still due in the next week or so. But the whole border between South Africa and Zimbabwe is more than 700 kilometers. And so there's a long-term project that we are working on to look at how do we maintain and secure the borders of South Africa together with the Department of Defense, whose constitutional mandate it is to secure the borders. So again, because the public raised many concerns about the quality of the fence, I've asked the Auditor General to investigate to see whether we got value for money and whether due process was followed. The Auditor General responded on the 30th of April that the Auditor General will do the investigation, and they will let us know as soon as they have completed the investigation, and I will make that report public too.
All right, we'll follow that too. Thank you for your time. We have to leave it there. That was Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia de Lille.